Welcome, everyone. If you're just joining or have been on for a bit, thank you for joining our virtual wellness fair. We're so excited to bring you today and the 27th 2 days of wonderful, amazing webinars brought to you by leading experts across the country. So excited to talk all things nutrition with Rachel Edwards. Rachel is a LifeStart registered dietitian, clinical exercise physiologist, aerialist, and a Netflix binger, which I think we all are, especially in quarantine. She designs programs considering someone's health status, activity level, interests, and lifestyle. She creates a plan you can happily incorporate into your busy schedule and still reach your goals. Through support, accountability, nutrition, and exercise expertise, Rachel helps clients improve their health. Rachel, take it away.
Hi, thanks so much. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into it, everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here and talk about some nutrition basics today. Well, thanks so much for having me, everyone. Yes, I'm Rachel Edwards. I'm a registered dietitian, and I currently reside in beautiful Seattle. I am really excited to share this information with you today because I think, especially when we're diving into nutrition and doing our own research, sometimes we get stuck on little details and there's lots of conflicting information. So sometimes it's great to just come back to the basics to figure out what we want to do for our health. So content, what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about macronutrients, so our fat, our protein, our carbohydrates, micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, meal balance, how much of each that you want to ideally be consuming as a typical, healthy adult, and then outcomes. Why are all these things so important? So macronutrients, when we talk about macronutrients, we're mainly talking about three different things. We're talking about carbohydrates, fats, and protein, and then also alcohol. So these are all of our energy yielding substances. So these are nutrients that have a caloric value. So they add to our calories, they give us energy to do our daily functions, as well as, different processes in our bodies that are not voluntary. So it's kind of interesting how they found these values. Originally, we figured out the density of nutrients, how many calories were actually in a gram, using a bomb calorimeter. So they would seal different foods and they would submerge them in water and heat them up, and essentially the rise in temperature, that's how they measured how many calories. So now we use an Atwater system, which is the average of what they found in the bomb calorimeter measurements. So about 9 calories per gram in fats, about 7 calories per gram in alcohol, and then 4 calories per gram in both carbohydrates and protein. And so those are the averages that you typically see on food labels to estimate how much energy you're actually consuming. A lot of questions I get on, energy and especially food labels are, how do I count carbs? Should I be subtracting fiber from my total carbohydrates, if I'm trying to count carbs for whatever reason you're counting carbs. There's conflicting ideas on this. And I think the problem is there's several different ways that food manufacturers can actually do their calorie counting on labels. So typically I tell people, no, don't subtract the fiber, but that kind of varies depending on what you're doing. Another common question I get is, what is the most important nutrient for weight loss? Is it carbohydrates? Is it fat? Is it protein? And it definitely comes down to that balance. There is no, one nutrient that's going to make or break your diet, right? It's definitely about having the balance, which we'll talk more about. And then the most important nutrient for muscle gain. Just because I get this question a lot, I wanted to throw this little tidbit in that, typically if you have just done a workout and you're trying to, promote your muscle gain, a post-workout snack with a 2-to-1 carb to protein ratio can be really beneficial for that purpose. So I wanted to share that info with you since I get that question a lot. Some great examples of that, some fruit smoothies with a little protein, protein bars, yogurt. Surprisingly, chocolate milk is actually a perfect carb to protein ratio. If you want an example of that, just look at a chocolate milk label. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about our macronutrients here, starting with carbohydrates. So carbs get a lot of flack recently as far as, you know, I see a lot of things on the internet that they increase weight gain and whatnot, but we do actually need carbohydrates. They're really important for energy, for not only our exercise and daily activities, but they're also a primary energy source for our nervous system, our red blood cells. It's actually the only energy system our red blood cells use. And then it's really important for our kidneys and our brain function as well. Exercise performance, carbohydrates are typically the primary nutrient you're using when you're actually exercising. So you want to make sure you have enough carbs if you are doing physical activity. And then they are also important for muscle repair, not just protein, but we also have glycogen stored in our muscles, which is used for that immediate energy, right? So important for muscle repair, DNA, RNA, and cell structure in our bodies as well. Typically, you want around 45 to 65% of your calories coming from carbohydrates. And that's for not only our energy, but also to get an adequate amount of fiber, which is actually a carbohydrate that does not contribute energy because it doesn't digest the same way in our bodies. But it's really important for supporting our gut flora, or our, you know, microbiome in the gut. That might be a term that you've heard a lot recently, because it's really important for not only our digestive health, but our immune function. A lot of our immune system is in our gut. So getting adequate fiber in order to feed those little guys down there, super important. Fiber is also very satiating. It keeps you full longer because it digests more slowly. So that can be helpful for preventing overeating, as well as, you know, keeping your energy levels stable and just feeling satisfied in your diet overall. Typical fiber recommendations, about 25 to 35 grams per day for an average healthy adult. All right, and the fun part, carbohydrate foods. We get our carbohydrates from our grains, our starchy vegetables, our fruits, other vegetables, beans and lentils, all the good stuff. All right. And moving into fats, primary functions of fat in our body. We need them for brain function, our inflammation response, both pro-inflammation and anti-inflammation, tissue structures, vitamin absorption, and then again, that satiety word comes up, which is our fullness and our satisfaction with what we're eating. So types of fats, we're looking at unsaturated, saturated, and trans fat are 3 different types of fats. And the ones we typically want to focus on are polyunsaturated and maybe most especially omega-3 fatty acids, because these have a very cardioprotective effect. So it's good for our heart health. It's also great for the inflammation response in our body, inhibiting, you know, chronic inflammation. And then it's great for our brain function and blood clotting as well. So a special emphasis on polyunsaturated and omega-3 fats, and we'll talk about foods that go along with that in just a minute. Our saturated fats, we typically want to minimize. If you look at the very bottom of our bullet points here, you'll see saturated fat at less than or equal to 10% of our total calories. And that's largely because saturated fat in excess amounts can have a negative effect on our cholesterol and our heart health. So we want to keep that around 10% of our calories. And then trans fat is not something we need in our bodies, but we do process it as a nutrient. It's often man-made. There's not a lot of trans fats that naturally occur. It's typically the processing of foods that creates trans fats. And so those are the ones that we want to avoid. And looking at our fatty foods, so our probably most healthy foods are unsaturated fats. We're gonna get from nuts and seeds, fish, avocado, and then oils liquid at room temperature. So your olive oil, your vegetable oils. And then a special emphasis on foods that are high in those omega-3s would be our fish, particularly salmon, salmon, mackerel, and even sardines. Oysters are high as well. And then avocados and olive oil and walnuts. Those are some foods that are particularly high in our omega-3 fatty acids. If you want that extra nutrition boost, those are great. And then ones that we want to kind of minimize, the red meats, the high fat dairy, lards, so animal fats, and then coconut oil tend to be much higher in saturated fat than unsaturated. And then combination foods, most nuts fall in that unsaturated fat category, but cashews, macadamia, and Brazil nuts, we get kind of a combination of saturated and unsaturated fats. And then our trans fats, the products that you want to minimize or avoid include margarine, Crisco, pastries, donuts. So those foods that are made with those really highly processed oils. And reason for that is the trans fats increase not only our negative cholesterol levels, but they also increase the oxidative factors in our body. So they're not incredibly healthy for our cells. And so total fats, around 20 to 35% of our calories coming from fat as a whole. And finally, coming to protein. Primary functions of protein, I'm sure you know they are big for muscle building and repair, but we also have a lot of other functions for protein in the body, including enzymes and hormone production, immune response signaling, the transport of other nutrients, and then satiety, fullness and satisfaction with our eating, and then our mood. It can be a very helpful nutrient for stabilizing our mood as well. So the makeup of proteins are amino acids. These are our building blocks for protein, and there's 9 essential amino acids that we have to get from our diet. So we can't produce these in the body. They come from our various protein foods. And then it's a big range for protein, just depending on the individual and how active they are. About 10 to 35% of our calories are going to come from protein. All right, and high protein sources include a lot of meat products. So we have poultry, fish, but we also have edamame, tofu, tempeh, cottage cheese, and other low-fat cheeses are incredibly high in protein as well. And then we have red meats that are really high in protein, a little higher in our saturated fat as well, so we typically want to minimize. But a little red meat in your diet is great for iron and B12 levels, and of course, protein. And then we have our combination foods. So our beans and lentils, our nuts and seeds are also great protein sources for vegetarians and vegans. All right, so looking at all the macronutrients, then it kind of brings us to, all right, we have the percentages, carbs, fat, protein, fiber. How much of these different food groups should I actually be consuming in a day? So I like this visual to the right. It gives you a great example. It looks like a plate, but I kind of think of it as the different proportions of food groups I want throughout my whole day. So a little more vegetables than fruits, and they should be, making up about half the volume of the food that I'm eating. And then the other half, we have our starchy vegetables, our proteins, and then healthy fats. And so with this balance, we typically hit in these ranges of, 40 to 65 carbs, 20 to 35 fat, 15 to 25 protein, and then 25 to 35 grams of fiber. Another one we got to think about when we're looking at our nutritional health in the big picture is water. Water is important, of course, for our blood flow and overall functioning of our body. It also has an effect on our energy and our hunger levels too. Sometimes if we're dehydrated, we end up a little bit more hungry, a little bit more irritable, and more tired and lacking in energy. So the typical recommendation is about 8 cups of water a day for an average adult, consuming a 2,000 calorie diet. That's going to range up or down depending on your, activity levels, the temperature and the climate in which you live. So water definitely varies a lot depending on the person. And then of course, when we look at nutrition, we got to think about micronutrients too, which we will talk about next, vitamins and minerals, all those fun things. So you see supplements on our shelves, vitamins and minerals, what are they all about? What do they actually do for me, right? So I broke it down when we're looking at the vitamins into water soluble and fat soluble. So when we look at our water soluble vitamins, these are things that we want to consume, daily or every other day. Because they're water soluble, they deplete from the body pretty quickly. So you have to replenish these more regularly. And so these vitamins tend to aid in energy production. So they don't directly give us energy. They don't have a caloric value, but they help with protecting our cells, creating red blood cells, and then helping with the transport of energy and the creation of energy in our bodies. And so these include B vitamins and vitamin C. And we'll find these in whole grains, eggs, leafy greens, fish, lean meat, citrus fruits, bell peppers. So it's hard to find a pattern with water soluble vitamins, right? We're going to find them a little bit in various different food groups here. And then fat soluble vitamins. So we can store these vitamins in our liver and our fatty tissue. So we don't need to replenish them quite as often. Vitamin D, you see that supplement a lot just because a lot of us don't always get a lot of sunlight. That's our sunshine vitamin, right? But often we don't need to replenish these quite as often as our water soluble vitamins. And our fat soluble, so we aid in vision, immunity, bone health, and blood clotting. This includes vitamins A, D, E, and K. And you're going to find these in your leafy greens, almonds, sweet potatoes, milk, and soybeans. All right. And then looking at our minerals and phytochemicals, more micronutrients here. So in micronutrients being all those little things that we find in our foods, right? So our microminerals, so this would be sodium, also known as salt, right? Potassium, calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium. And these minerals are going to aid in our muscle and our bone strength, nervous system function, and blood pressure regulation. And we're going to find these in milk products, leafy greens, black beans, lentils, bananas, and fish. And then we have trace minerals, which we need in smaller amounts than our microminerals, but are still super important for our body functions. They help us transport oxygen, make sure our nervous system is functioning properly, protect ourselves, and help us heal wounds when we get injured. So we do need these in smaller amounts, but they include iron, manganese, copper, zinc, and selenium. And we often find these in oysters, spinach, and nuts are some common sources. And then phytochemicals. One that you might not have heard of is often. These are often found in fruits and vegetables. There's various different forms of them. And this is one of the reasons, the variety of colors is so important in our diet, because different colors are often associated with different phytochemicals that are really helpful for protecting our cells, immune response. They act as an antioxidant, so it kind of helps prevent cell damage, and then also helps aid in cell communication. Ooh, all right. So that's kind of our overview of our different nutrients and the major things we need for our body, right? Macronutrients, micro, water, fiber. What are the outcomes? Why is, fueling your body appropriate so important? And so we're going to start with kind of the negative outcomes, and then we'll finish with the more positive, right? So a diet really high in, I have sugar on the slide, but it's really added sugar. Saturated fats, low in fiber can increase our risk of high cholesterol and heart disease. Diets that are excessively high in sodium and low in potassium also have a negative effect on our heart health. And then poor diet balance is also associated with increased risk of type 2 diabetes, cancer, inflammatory bowel disease, and other chronic and acute illnesses. So really looking at the management and prevention of these chronic illnesses when we're looking at our diet, right? And then something important to note too is weight cycling. So this means frequent fluctuations in our body weight over a period of time. And the period of time is definitely varies depending on what study you look at. But typically it's multiple years of people who go up and down in their body weight can increase their risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and osteoporosis. So keep in mind, finding that healthy lifestyle and that balance is going to be much more beneficial than, our body weight constantly going up and down. And then when we look at nutrition, we look at energy, focus, mood, and overall well-being too. It's not just about, disease prevention, but, living your best life. So outcomes of a balanced diet, the positives: when we eat healthfully, when we include those super healthy foods in our diet, we're going to have consistent energy, satiety, and satisfaction, both physically and emotionally. And that's something to note too, is it's not just about the nutrients you're getting, but feeling satisfied and making sure that you are having some splurges every now and then so that you don't feel like you're craving and deprived of things all the time, right? Satisfaction in our food is also really important. Management and preventing chronic illness, we definitely touched on that. Our immune function, our mood, our focus, our sleep, exercise performance, and even motivation. All of these factors can be affected by what we're putting into our bodies. So when we come to our conclusion here, we want variety, individualization. There's no one size fits all diet that's going to be perfect for everyone. And you want to have balance. So getting a variety of different foods, different colors, and making sure that you're hitting all those different food groups so that you have that balance. And that is it. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. Let me check on our chat here. Bring up some questions. All right, we do have a question here. Are you aware of positive health effects of kombucha? Yeah, that's an interesting question. So something we didn't touch a lot on is probiotics. And so probiotics are bacteria, bacteria that we find in fermented foods. So like kombucha or kimchi, even Greek yogurts. And it is kind of a newer area of research, but so far what I've read is it's very positive. It can have a positive effect, but probably even more important than probiotics are prebiotics, which is fiber, right? Feeding the bacteria that's already in our gut. So for a typical healthy person, you want to focus more on getting enough fiber than, necessarily drinking lots and lots of kombucha, but it can definitely have a positive effect as well. Is there a difference in getting vitamins from supplements versus food? Oh, such good questions today. So yes, there can be. And I would say a lot of it is, with the supplement you're taking, is it specified for you? Some supplements have really high doses of, particularly B vitamins, which it's hard to overdose on those, but we definitely can if you're over supplementing for a long period of time. So you want to be careful with supplements. Definitely something to talk to your dietitian or your doctor about, because sometimes we can over or under supplement. And then supplements don't often carry phytochemicals or the variety of vitamins and minerals that we need. As we went through that list, you can see that there's a lot. And so I would say your main focus should be getting vitamins and minerals from your food, but supplementation can be indicated for some people that, maybe you're lacking in a certain nutrient or certain food group. So is there a difference? I guess yes and no. Often when we consume vitamins and minerals from our food, we get, it's unlikely that we will over absorb vitamins and minerals, right? Our bodies are very good at selectively digesting and picking through food, right? Versus we're more likely to, get vitamin toxicities from supplementation or even under absorption. They don't always absorb really well in the body. So you might be paying a lot for a supplement that's not really doing much for you. So I would say definitely discuss it with a doctor, dietitian to see if supplementation is right for you. All right. Sorry, long tangent on supplements. What's our next question? What type of vitamins do you recommend, brand, pill form, or gummy? Yeah, another good question. It's not really a one size fits all. Something I will say about supplements is I always recommend a third-party tested supplement because it's not something that is regulated by the FDA. So, you know, if you're a US resident and you're looking for supplements here, make sure that there is a third-party testing sticker. And then maybe I will send that out because there are some third-party testing companies that are, you know, very reputable that you can look for that little sticker on your supplements. So like NSF is one of them. If you see that NSF sticker on your label, or USP, these mean that companies have gone in and verified what's in your supplement is actually in it. There's no extra fillers or banned substances. So no one size fits all for supplements, but definitely make sure they are third-party tested if you are choosing to supplement. What are your thoughts on the keto diet for weight loss? Man, so many good questions today. So my thoughts on the keto diet, I think I've seen it be very effective for weight loss. It's not always effective for long-term weight loss because it is hard to sustain. And often I see people on the keto diet with very low fiber intake. So if you are doing the keto diet, make sure you're getting adequate amounts of fiber, whether that means supplementation or, you know, extra fruits and veggies. So my thoughts on the keto diet, it can be effective, but it's not always effective in the long term. Person to person, make sure you're finding something that you can sustain in the long run. So if you are using keto for a weight loss plan, make sure you have a maintenance plan in place when you get off the keto diet if it's not something that you're going to do forever, right? All right. Should your diet differ on the days that you exercise versus the days that you don't? Absolutely. We're going to be hungrier on days that we exercise, or even the day post-exercise if you're a little nutrient depleted. And you should definitely listen to your body there. There is not a set range that you have to follow every single day. If you're expending more energy, you definitely want to eat more energy or eat more calories. So yes, your diet will definitely differ on days you exercise versus days that you don't. In terms of getting enough fiber, do you have recommendations for staple foods that have a sufficient amount of fiber? That's a good question. So when we look at fiber, whole grains, particularly oats, come to mind, are really high in fiber. Leafy greens, so your spinach, your romaine, beans and lentils are really high in fiber if that's something that you tolerate really well. And then most fruits and vegetables are going to have a fair amount of fiber as well. So looking at whole grains, fruits and vegetables, there's tons of different foods as far as getting enough fiber. So those are just a few off the top of my head. Do I have an opinion on keto diet versus the Mediterranean diet versus plant-based, low-fat, whole food diet? What is better for your overall sustained health? Oof, excellent questions, you all. So keto diet versus Mediterranean diet versus plant-based, what is better for your overall health? Again, I wouldn't say there's a one size fits all diet, right? Everyone's a little bit different. Everyone tolerates foods a little bit differently and has a different background and, you know, cultural beliefs around food, which you have to consider as well. If I were to pick keto versus Mediterranean versus plant-based, I would say there's more research on the Mediterranean diet and the benefits of that out currently. All right. What's more beneficial, individual vitamins and minerals or multivitamins and multiminerals? I'm going to go back to my previous answer on that one. It's very individualized. Not everyone needs to supplement. Some people should supplement a lot. And so it's something to talk to your doctor or dietitian about. I've heard it's good to use a copper water bottle. Have you heard of this? That's something I don't know a lot about, to be honest with you, is using a copper water bottle. And I assume it's for getting, you know, a micromineral. Copper is something that we do use in our body. I think I would suspect that you would get a little bit of copper from that. I don't know whether, you know, in a water bottle in particular that you get that benefit or not. That's a great question. I do know some people that cook with cast iron skillets do get a little bit more iron in their food that way. So it's plausible. Honestly, I don't know. It's a good question. My thoughts on collagen and should you take it daily? So collagen is a supplement. It's a type of broken down protein, right? And it's really touted for its joint health, that I've seen recently. And I don't think it's necessary to take it daily. We do get collagen from the foods that we eat, particularly protein products. And so supplementing extra collagen might not necessarily give you that added benefit unless you are, deficient in that particular amino acids that are in that protein. Good question. What meal plan do I follow and why? Oh, interesting. What meal plan do I follow and why? I tend to have a very varied diet. I try and switch up my fruits and vegetables, weekly or bi-weekly. I eat lots of different kinds of protein and grains, but I don't necessarily switch it up every day. I'm not someone who likes to spend a ton of time cooking, so I'll meal prep, 1 or 2 main dinner type meals a week, and that's kind of what I'll eat off of. Yeah, good question. I don't necessarily restrict any foods in particular. I think, allowing those splurges for that satisfaction factor is really important in having a balanced diet, not just nutritionally. So I hope that answers your question. It's very varied, I suppose, is my diet plan. What do I think about intermittent fasting and using a smaller feeding window? I think it's an interesting area of research that is up and coming, particularly for prevention of type 2 diabetes development. I don't think it's for everyone. And if you do choose to intermittent fast, I usually suggest you do it, at night where we're kind of sleeping and in our fasting period anyway. So picking a time, from evening to morning that you're going to fast if you want to try it out. But it's definitely not for everyone, particularly if you have health issues, such as diabetes or heart disease. Definitely talk to your doctor before starting any kind of new diets, such as intermittent fasting or keto diets. But yeah, it is an up and coming area of research that there's no really conclusive evidence yet, but intermittent fasting can be very beneficial. If the goal is to lose weight, what is your recommendation? Lose weight long term, to mainly focus on calorie intake, reduce intake of carbs. Any other one that I found is sustainable? Oh, really good question. So losing weight in the long term, I wouldn't say it's about any one nutrient in particular, right? I know there's been a lot of like low fat and or low carb diets that we've seen on the market. And I would say people that maintain their weight loss long term, they start usually they start slow and they only lose, 1/2 to 2 pounds a week on average. And they find foods and satisfaction in their eating. So they're not having tons and tons of cravings all the time. Because if you're feeling restricted, you're way less likely to sustain it in the long term, right? We're typically going to go back to our old patterns if we don't feel satisfied in what we're eating. So I'd say more than particular nutrients is having an overall nutritional balance, finding that, and also finding satisfaction in your eating and finding what splurges, you should allow yourself to feel good and satisfied emotionally and physically. I think I answered that question. As far as weight loss goes, it does come to calories in, calories out. So, even if you're on the keto diet, but you're consuming 3,000 calories a day and only burning 2,000, it's unlikely that you will lose weight, right? So if we're talking about calories specifically, it does come to that energy input and output as far as weight loss itself. All right, what protein supplement do you recommend for weight loss as a meal replacement? So protein supplement for weight loss. So I guess I would go back to, there's not necessarily, you know, adding a protein supplement that's going to help you lose weight. Protein can be helpful for, you know, satiety, helping you feel full. So sometimes adding a little more protein in your diet, if you are low in protein, can be helpful for weight loss. So is there a particular supplement I'd recommend? No, I don't really tout any like brands in particular, but if you choose to do a protein supplement, make sure it has a third-party testing sticker on it. So like NSF, USP, those are companies that you can look for on the label of your supplement. Is this meeting recorded? Yes, the meeting is recorded. Excellent question. All right. I think I got through all of our questions here. But I'll hang out for another minute if anyone else has any more questions. And thank you so much for joining, everyone. I hope you're finding satisfaction and nutritional balance in your eating, and contact your registered dietitians if you're not. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and stop the meeting here. Have a great rest of your day.